I just finished episode 2 of Reign of the Seven Spellblades, and holy shit, I have to say, this might be the best 2 episodes of anime I have seen in a long, long time. There is a lot to digest and analyze in this episode, but before I get into that, I once again want to emphasize how much I love the direction they are taking with this anime, with how much they are emphasizing the small things, the world building, the small things that keep building on the world and engrossing you in the world, and immersing you in everything around this world, and just keep hitting on that point of this is a different universe than our own. This whimsical, magical thing is something completely different, and it really, really draws you in. I thought episode 1 was pretty good, but episode 2, I think, just puts it up another step or two in terms of the quality. We get our first fight scene, which was really good, actually, and we get a lot of development between some of our characters, and we get a lot of hints at where the story might go from here. With episode 2, we do see basically Oliver and his friends start classes on the first day of school. We get a sword fighting class, a sword art class, and then a wand class, and then a magical creature class. Botany class, I guess you want to call it, in some extent. And it ends the episode with some altercation that ends up due to Oliver and McFarlane accompanying the bookworm here to get his book, but they end up in the labyrinth, etc. But this second episode, like, again, every scene feels impactful. Like, every piece of dialogue feels like you really have to stop and think and analyze and be like, wow, what did that really mean? Like, what, like, all this emotion, all these feelings that these characters have for each other and between each other, the impact is very real and very immediate in all of these scenes. To start off with the sword scene, or the sword fighting scene between Nanao and Oliver, not to start off with anything else, but the quality of the fight scene itself, I thought was great. I mean, it felt immediately impactful, and it felt immediately intense. And just the fight between them as it developed felt really fluid, and the shots looked great, and the fight itself was intense yet beautiful. But especially as the fight draws more to a close, and we see Nanao shedding a few tears, and in that moment, Nanao and Oliver take a turn to the more severe, both unconsciously breaking the safety spell that was put on their swords to not take any lethal damage, and going in for the kill basically against each other, before being stopped by the teacher. Like, that moment signified a lot that I'm still unsure what exactly will mean for the future of the show. We do see that from that fight scene, as well as some later scenes when she talks to Oliver about the fight, that she, for some reason, really wants to see what lies beyond the pale. She wants nothing more. Does that mean she wants to die? Does that mean that she maybe has seen enough suffering and death, and she has killed too many, that she simply wants to move on to something else? It is hard to say, but clearly, she has some underlying trauma and difficulties with her personality, and what she has seen in the past, that may drive her towards wanting this new phase, if you want to call it that. Then, from Oliver's side as well, you get multiple flashbacks to him thinking of the scars he saw when he saw Nanao bathe, and the amount of suffering and death that she has seen and also caused. You hear him talking in the fight scene to himself about this blade, with how skilled it is. It has not just killed a few, it has killed many, and maybe even hundreds, who knows. But it is soaked in blood nonetheless. And just all this dialogue really intensifies the emphasis on that Nanao has a very dodgy and depressing and potentially dark past with the war and suffering she has seen, and how this is currently impacting her personality. Even though she is chipper and positive and full of smiles, in one moment, her underlying difficulties may surface in another moment. I did find it interesting when Oliver then, basically when he sees Nanao start crying in the duel, saying that he wants nothing more than to stop the tears, and then basically making himself determined that he will fight this to the end, so to speak, or fight with all his might, and then Nanao seeing that and responding in kind, which ends with them breaking the safety spell on the swords. That as well I found really interesting, that he, I mean, I suppose was wanting to end her tears, even if it meant sort of giving her death, or giving her, let's say, a transition to a different plane of existence that she seemingly craved. But then, when Nanao talks to him about the fight after the fact, that how she hasn't had a duel like that before, and she loved it and she wanted to fight again, but without being stopped this time. But then Oliver responding back very impassionately that no, I will never fight you again. I don't want to kill you, and I don't want you to kill me. And basically just walking off. And then this causing tension between the two of them for the rest of the episode. Like, that entire interpersonal strife and character interaction and development I found really interesting, and I'm super curious where they will go with that, and what all this means in relation to the two of them. And also, it raises some interesting questions on Oliver's past. I mean, clearly, he isn't bad in combat. He deflected Nanao's attacks fairly well, and even though he might have been on the defensive, he clearly wasn't a novice to battle, as far as I saw. This might give further context to why he has this spy lady that is watching over him, as we see a clip of in this episode as well, and potentially a connection with his brother or his siblings that are already in the school as upperclassmen, and how this might impact, how this is all related, basically. I'm very, very intrigued by Oliver's backstory, but it seems very hazy so far, and I assume he'll be the most mysterious character in the show moving forward. Furthermore, I do love how we get these small character moments from the start, where we see the McFarlane girl basically helping Oliver out to get this duel with Nanao in the beginning, and how these characters interact with each other and start becoming familiar with each other and start forming these familiar bonds, I suppose. Another great thing in this episode is again the small things, the very small things that many anime will overlook, but that really help with the world building and how it all connects together. Especially, for example, the scene where the bookworm here, I forget his name still, he explains why they use sword arts in addition to their wands, explaining how this came to be in this world. Just these small details really add a lot onto the world and making it believable and immersive. Another really impactful and powerful scene, or collection of scenes in this episode, was with Katie and the experiments with the magical creatures in the third class. Now, we already know that Katie from episode 1, she is very much of a, I value the life of all creatures, I don't believe in exploiting them for our own benefit, and that entire spiel, right? But we get a way more deepening of that in episode 2, with every single thing that she does. And we see the teacher in this magical creature class basically doesn't care about the magical creatures, she just sees them as assets to exploit, and that's that. And basically all the people in the class basically follow suit, and don't really have the most concern about it. But Katie, clearly, has an insane amount of concern for these creatures that, even though they might turn into monsters, she doesn't want to mess up and cause harm to any of them regardless. And she values each and every life to an immense degree. And you see that in every single detail, starting with her spending a ton of time to make sure that she doesn't fail and doesn't turn any of these cocoons black, and that these things turn into monsters. But in the end, even while being as careful as she could possibly be, she makes a mistake, so the last cocoon turns black and a monster is about to pop out. But instead of burning it, she still doesn't want to kill any living creature, so she just tries to break up the cocoon to free the creature before it turns into a monster, or a fiend anyway, or like an enemy, or aggressive, whatever. So she would rather, in that moment, she would rather risk being hurt or attacked than risk injury, maybe even death to herself, to save this living creature, than to commit any sort of harm upon it. And this ends in her being attacked and having her hand bitten, whatever, and then Oliver and McFarlane come in to save her and kill the creature. But just in that short scene, all these elements keep reinforcing just how much of a defining part of her personality this trait is. And we get even more info in the infirmary with Oliver and her conversing, that she grew up with, a troll and magical creatures and animals and everything, that she has a deep connection with all of these things. And she, doesn't accept how the world of mages especially consider all these things just as resources to exploit, that anything that is not a human is just something to exploit and use for your own benefit. And how that just on a primal, deep level is against her entire vision and belief system. And this can create a lot of interesting parallels and a lot of interesting storylines down the road. So I'm very interested to see where they go with that. To end off this point as well, with Katie and Oliver and all these characters, Nanao, etc., you see that each character already are showing distinct signs of being unique and their very own character. I know that seems very obvious, but in many anime, a lot of characters don't feel definitive. They don't feel unique. They don't feel like they are their own person, or they are someone unique, or an actual fleshed out character. But in this show, every character so far seems to be fleshed out to a very, very good degree, making them all extremely distinct and unique in their own way. which is a very good sign of quality. So at the end of the episode here, where we get a lot more intrigue, so we see our cast of characters having dinner, and the bookworm here has forgot his book in the magic class, so he goes to collect it. But before he does, McFarlane and Oliver, clearly having some insider knowledge, Oliver from his siblings, I suppose, or maybe some other connection at the school, and McFarlane because of her father and family having been at the school for a long time, immediately sort of look at each other, and both get up to go with him. And then Kate explains that she has heard that at night, the labyrinth, which is apparently the school was built on a labyrinth, and that at night this labyrinth encroaches on the school grounds, making the entire school like a maze that you can get lost in, and God knows what happens at that point. So they go to pick up this book, and at first it seems that nothing bad will happen. Phew, lucky. But, of course, things take a turn for the worse, and they get stuck in the labyrinth. And then, of course, Oliver goes to explain that it should be fine. Teachers and upperclassmen patrol these areas to help new students that get lost, which happens all the time, really. But then, things take a turn for the grim when a fourth-year student, which uses some sort of mist aphrodisiac to entice males to do her bidding, or what else, I'm not quite sure, basically comes out and doesn't seem to be friendly. She seems to have some ulterior motivations to use these new students for, be it to get rid of them permanently or use them for her own nefarious means. Here again we see that Oliver, for some reason, has a lot of knowledge. I mean, he talked about the thesis, and the reason he knows this fourth-year student because of the thesis she published and that he read, of course. I mean, showing that he reads a lot, he knows a lot, and God knows what sort of connections he has in relation to, like, all these things down the line. But he also seems to possess again, abilities, because he's able to resist this aphrodisiac that I assume not many is able to, at least not at this level, being a freshman and such at the school. But they end up running away from her, the three of them, but they get stopped by a fifth-year student that blocks their way with some bones. And then the episode ends on a cliffhanger with them being in this pincer attack, potentially, between the fourth-year and fifth-year student and the three of them in the middle, having their escape blocked. This, of course, brings up the question of, these two students do not seem to be very friendly. They seem more like the kind that will kill you and drop you in a ditch, or use you for some very nefarious, evil means. So, I am starting to wonder what the death rate really is at this school, if it is 20% or way more, and also whether they even are going to be any good teachers or upperclassmen that will protect the new students, as seemingly these upperclassmen just roam the labyrinths at night, trying to catch new students that get lost and use them and do what God knows what to them. I mean, this entire thing, again, raises a ton of questions of what exactly this school is. What exactly is going on here? Like, how in the world is this school working as it is? This is some very screwed up stuff. We did hear, though, in the first episode that the headmistress did say that in this school, you are on your own. Do not expect to be saved or rescued. So I assume that they will have to fight their way out on their own. And maybe we'll see Oliver and McFarlane somehow use some nefarious skills to get out of the pinch. But we'll see in the next episode. But again, the second episode here did such a good job of hammering home so many things. And every single small scene did such a good job of continuing to hammer in points that were previously noted on or focused on. Even with the lunch scene, which lasts like 30 seconds or something, where Oliver's eating on his own, and you see his expression is somewhat not there. And then you see McFarlane looking at Nanao and seeing that her expression as well is perhaps downbeat or not quite there. And then her figuring out that something happened between the two of them, which she notes on later in the episode. Like, every single small scene like that just reinforces the quality that this show is already displaying, and the potential of how good and amazing the show can be if it continues in this way. I mean, I am loving this show so far, and I have so many things I want to say about this, and so many things I want to do about this. I have like 10 video ideas I want to do, just do deep dives on characters and all the things around this show, which may happen soon, by the way. I'll have to see. But yeah, what do you think of this show? I can't be just continually talking about this for 10 hours, so what do you think? Do you like the show, hate the show? What do you like about it? What do you hate about it? Feel free to leave your comments down below. I will be loving to read and respond to all of them. So thank you if you do that. Also, feel free to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff to support this channel. Deeply appreciate any support. That being said, I'm just going to go order every single light novel of this anime right now, and I will see you all in the next anime review episode or similar anime video. So have a good day, and bye-bye.